Hello and welcome everyone to today's lunch hour webinar, our weekly session on what's new, what's hot in the world of the Connected CMO. As you're aware, this session is brought to you with the support of Microsoft, and they obviously have a wealth of knowledge in this space as well. But mostly for today's session, we are going to talk about the processes required for you to get started with a tech roadmap for the marketing organization. So it isn't specific to one tool, but it is more for you to understand what are the requirements, what makes it more efficient when you do actually go ahead and do the IT roadmap for your marketing team. Now, some of you have actually commented that you don't have a tech roadmap. So my advice is that step one, think about getting one going. I mean, we've all seen the Gartner research report that the CMO is going to outspend the CIO. I'm not quite sure if that bit is going to happen immediately, but I do definitely know that today, if you are a CMO who is allergic to technology, then chances are that someone else who perhaps understands it better and is really a native in the digital space is going to definitely take that role away from you. So, we all need to forget the good old days when marketers were really madmen and move on to the world where we are really ad tech people. So let's start with the basics. There's a consumer journey. All of us have seen this consumer journey. In the past, it was really, really simple. The person had limited choices in terms of learning about the steps on the path. He also had numerous options to choose from, but not as many as today. And certainly the number of channels was also limited. But the process remains the same. It's just that every one of these steps now is far more complicated with multiple decision points and channels to choose from. So let's take a look at the processes on the customer journey. So, the original processes are still there, but now we have referral programs, loyalty programs, product attractiveness, point of purchase, user experience. And broadly speaking, we have strategy and then operational optimization and then the analysis and insights piece. So each of our elements in the marketing plan would fall into one of these segments. And thereafter, we would build out the process for each of them. And then we would define a technology tool for each of them. For those of you who are asking, yes, the deck will be available along with the recording. So you don't necessarily have to copy this whole thing. So let's take a look. So we talked about analysis and insights. Then we talked about strategy and operational efficiency. So if you look at analysis and insights, I have listed down the basic activities within that space. So definitely there's market sensing, there's customer feedback, there's customer experience tracking, and then there's the competitive landscape. And then we have strategy where we have customer segmentation, customer experience blueprint, an investment plan, a go-to-market strategy, portfolio management, sales and marketing strategy. And then under operational efficiency, we have performance metrics and alignment, the execution engine, distribution channel management, investment optimization, and resource optimization. And once you actually start working on these, of course, each of these will have sub-processes. And typically, every one of these would have some tool attached to it of various varying complexity. And my only advice here is that, try to find tools that work with each other rather than, find multiple pieces that you then sit around trying to figure out how to integrate and how to hand off. Also, by and large, all of these processes would require touch points with other departments. So when you're drawing out your process map, you should keep that also in mind. So let's take a look at what happens when you break it up. So I haven't done it to a great amount of detail, but just to give you all an idea of what it looks like and, to how many levels we can go with this. So you take strategy, there's first level breakup, then there's second level breakup. So your target audience, again, then you could break it up even further across your demographic, psychographic, and geographic. So, you would break it up narrower and narrower. Similarly, with customer retention, it's gone to 3 levels already. And then you probably have sub processes, teams, and splits across that as well. So my advice again on this one is that it's a top level generic process breakout. And ideally, you should do this for your specific needs, for your specific organization. And it's an effort that probably would work better structured as a brainstorming opportunity within the team, because you could drill down to many levels. And if you haven't done a process mapping for marketing before, it's truly an exciting journey, because you realize that you do a really lot of work. So we can pause for 30 seconds so you can give yourself a pat on the back. um, and it's not just that we handle a very complex process, it's that every one of these little points generates data, and then we have to figure out what data is usable, which data is just too much, and then figure out a data strategy to control, manage, share, and report all of that data as well. So if you're doing this mapping for the first time, again, like I cautioned, make it more of a brainstorming session, then do the articulation, and maybe the process diagrams come even later than that. So some of you have asked, does all of this apply to B2B and B2C? Yes, all processes are relevant to both, but perhaps the impact of each of these varies a little across B2B and B2C. So this is a simple mapping trying to show you where, which one is more important. So typically B2B tends to focus on the individual organization and the relationships thereof. And peer-to-peer perhaps is a little more important in a B2C. Awareness, mass media tends to be more important in a B2B scenario. But really speaking, the process mapping remains the same, as just perhaps a tweaking in terms of the importance of each of these. So it's just, if you don't have that much of funding or bandwidth or time, then you may want to prioritize one over the other. But all processes would be replicable and applicable for all types of organizations. And again, if you talk about the broad variations between B2B and B2C, from a strategy perspective also, there would be little differences. So for example, in B2B, we may focus more on functional aspects, whereas B2C is on emotional aspects. The customer attention in B2B tends to be more about relationship and trust, whereas B2C often, storytelling, the imagery, the ego, all of that comes into play. Though, of course, ego also comes into play in B2B, but in a slightly different way, because it's a group buying as opposed to an individual purchase. Similarly, product attractiveness in B2B, the product tends to be really complex, customized, and consultative, whereas B2C often, even in the case of a personalized offering, the attributes are fixed at the time of purchase, so the complexity is a little less in that case. Similarly, with point of purchase, B2B has a far longer sales cycle. So which are the top processes that we need to identify? So I put this up as discussion because it varies across organizations. It's very specific to your organization and what is your current priority or objective, and also to an extent, what is your readiness, in the sense that what have you already done? And many companies, for example, may prioritize a lead management over everything else today, or someone else may say that, look, I'm really far behind on mobile marketing, so let me see what I can do to fix that. And somebody else may say that marketing, financial management is all over the place, so let me look at that. So the 10 are not in order of ranking, it is just a listing. And I think, again, this would really make sense for you to brainstorm within the organization to prioritize which are the processes that you want to first take up, and then use a template from a preceding slide, break it up into as many sub-processes as you can, and then look at the BYOT session to understand, the mapping of the technology tools available for you to put into these processes, right? So, I think today a lot of people have done social marketing perhaps, but a lot of focus is on voice of the customer, mobile marketing, lead management. So take a call on which are your top 10 and then prioritize the timeline by which you're going to take up each one. So the topography of the marketing processes for B2B has been covered in other episodes as well. So we're talking about the customer value proposition, the awareness and acquisition, the CRM, the market sensing, and this is primarily for B2B. And you look at each of these sub-processes, and then again, as advised, you break it up and match it to a tool that is required. So if I look at B2B, and you'll have to do the same for B2C, but it's a little more complicated. So I've just done a sample for B2B. So if you say market sensing, the sub-processes are, market insight, target audience, propensity to buy. And then the kind of tools that you would need would be, say, Power BI solutions or an ISV solution for segmentation. So you would need to look at those kind of options, and match it to the process blueprint. Similarly for, market sensing, you would break it up again. This is for B2C. So it's similar, very similar, but some, there would be a nuance in terms of the detailing that you need to do for each of these, right? So customer advocacy, channel management, all of these are required. Gamification, more important for B2C, and then you map it to the tools that you have available for each of them. Again, continuing with the B2C process mapping, what are the other important processes, analytical process. It's just a template. You don't have to take it as is. It's just that it helps for you to say process, sub-process, and then match it to the tools that you have available or intend to buy or evaluate, and then put together your final process blueprint. So it's just a takeaway, a template for you to use. It's not that you have to follow the same processes because, like I said, it all varies as per your organization. It's a good starting point, however. So thank you so much for joining me today. And as you know, this is a session brought to you with the support of Microsoft. It is a certification program, so I do hope you attend all the episodes and learn more about how it is to be a connected marketer in the modern world. All the sessions and the decks will be made available to you. And thank you once again for joining. And my contact information is here if you have any queries. Thank you, and bye-bye, and have a great lunch.